Welcome to Home Care, Doors Open, where we discuss licensing, operations, and scaling your home care business. Whether you're just opening your doors or looking to unlock new doors to growth and success, this podcast is for you. Let's begin.
All right, hello everybody. This is Lucas Carroll back with another episode of Home Care Doors Open. I'm super excited today. We have Rachel Hammon, who's the Executive Director of the Texas Association of Home Care and Hospice. Welcome aboard, Rachel.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate.
Absolutely. Super excited to be talking to you today to share your wisdom and expertise with our viewers. What we start off with is maybe if you wouldn't mind sharing with our audience a little bit about your current role as Executive Director and what the association does for our home care organizations in Texas.
Well, certainly. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about the association and about home care and hospice. It's something I'm very passionate about. I am a registered nurse by trade and background, and I started my home care journey as a nurse in home care. And so, like many folks, I was really frustrated with the bureaucracy of home care and the inability at times to really focus on patient care because of all of the different things that you have to do to be compliant with the different rules and regs in home care. And so I found an opportunity with the association to get on a different side of things and make changes and make things better, right, for agencies that provide home care and hospice. And so the association's mission is to advocate for ethical practices, quality, and economic viability of home care and licensed home care and hospice agencies in Texas. Why? To ensure that families in Texas have that choice and have access to home care and hospice. It's something that the association is very passionate about, and every person at the association who works for the association, you'll find is really passionate about it. I've not only worked in home care, but also recently, a few years ago, lost my mother-in-law on hospice. So she was on hospice and she was able to spend the last year of her life at our home and was able to pass away in our home with all of her family around her. And that's possible because of hospice, obviously, and the availability of hospice. So we really feel that it's important that businesses are able to provide that and that individuals in the state of Texas have access to home care and hospice. And when I say home care, our association has been in business since 1969. And so we've represented all of care in the home. So when I say home care, that includes Medicare home health, hospice, private pay services, or agencies that might provide services through Medicaid to children with significant disabilities, all the way through the elderly and or young disabled. So home care is a very diverse area of practice. And if you can provide that service in the home and you're licensed by the state of Texas, then there's a lot of areas in which, as a business, you can choose to practice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks, Rachel, for sharing that. The association, we work with many other in a lot of other states. The Texas Association is very strong. What we see is the advocacy for the association for home-based care companies is very strong across the state and across the nation too. I'm curious if you wouldn't mind sharing what are some ways that the association advocates for home care, different home care organizations?
Absolutely. Well, as you mentioned, we have, we advocate. That is the first word in our mission statement, to advocate for. And so we've created and worked and developed a lot of relationships both down at the state legislature and with our federal congressional Texas delegation. And not only are our two delegations, our state delegation and our federal delegation, very important, but also the licensing entity or the regulatory bodies are also very, very important. Because, for instance, when you're trying to get your Medicare certification and something is hung up with your Medicare certification and it's going through its process, Palmetto, that's the fiscal intermediary for Texas, is really important. And having those relationships, we do have that. We've been instrumental in helping agencies whose applications have been stuck get those out of queue, so to speak, or figure out why they're stuck and help them through that process. It's very complicated. Likewise, if you are an entity that wants to provide Medicaid services or Medicaid hospice for that matter, there are contracting issues, there are licensing, revalidation issues, all of those things happen really at the bureaucratic or the state agency or federal agency level. We work with CMS, we work with Palmetto, we work with HHSC, the OIG. So there are so many different entities that touch a business that provides care in the home, and they don't talk to one another. They don't have processes for good communication. They do their thing. And that's not helpful when you're trying to get something done. So as the association, we have a lot of expertise in those areas. We have an extreme amount of expertise in the regulations themselves. And we have a lot of communication with our state agency on those regulations, the interpretation of the regulations, etc. For instance, we just participated in a regulatory reform work group with the HHSC. So they are in the process of implementing some regulatory reforms that's based on a bill that was passed last legislative session, and it was also based on what's kind of a state level DOGE process. So we saw that kind of take off with the new administration at the federal level. Well, that trickled down to our state, and our state implemented their own kind of DOGE committee. And so we're seeing the results of that through some initiatives through the governor's office, where they really want to look at regulations, kind of get through maybe some unnecessary or burdensome regulations and get rid of those, rewrite regulations in a different way. And then also separate from that, you've seen in the news quite a bit about fraud and abuse. We're seeing that, really ramp up at the state level as well. The governor just produced a memorandum to HHSC to really look at their processes and strengthen their fraud and abuse processes at the state agency. So we're going to see a lot of changes at that level as well.
That's very good to hear. All of the changes and the focus on fraud and abuse,
right,
as it should be, because we want good actors and good providers in the community for our seniors and everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm curious on your perspective for our audience. We have a lot of folks that reach out to us that are learning about home care and interested in maybe starting their own home care agency, whether it be a Medicare certified home health agency, maybe a hospice organization, non-medical care. They're interested, they're seeing the increased demand for the services, the aging of our senior population, and a number of different factors that are driving demand for home-based care. And they're maybe coming from other industries, other walks of life, maybe a previous career, and their ears are now open to like, okay, home care, I need to learn about this. What are some things that you could share, especially like from an advocacy perspective, if they were to leverage a relationship with the association on getting up to speed on learning how to successfully operate an agency in this space?
Absolutely. Well, learning is perpetual, particularly in home care and hospice. And it's really, really important that as an owner or a senior management personnel within an agency, that you are perpetually learning about how to deliver quality services. And as the association, we provide a lot of education in those areas. We are very familiar with how to run an agency, what it takes to run a quality agency. We have individuals who are on staff that can help answer questions at any stage, right, within your business. If you're brand new, what kind of questions you might have in terms of startup, what it takes, the funding that's required, the licensing that's required, the process that you have to go to, the timeline. All of those things are quite complex, but we certainly have individuals on staff that can help guide you through that. Likewise, if you were an experienced agencies, many times experienced agencies go through surveys, and not all surveys are the same. They're different. And our state licensing agency, they do conduct compliance surveys along with accrediting bodies, depending on what you're doing, right? So if you're a Medicare home health agency, you may have gone through accreditation. Well, you've actually have to go through accreditation to get through the certification process. And so therefore you'll go through accreditation surveys periodically to ensure that you're continuing to provide the services according to the regulations. So sometimes those surveys go a certain way and you may be questioning what the surveyor is finding or telling you. We are experts, really understand the applicability and all the nuances of the regulation and can provide guidance during that process as well. So we're really there providing education, compliance guidance. And one thing that people don't think a lot about is when you're attending, let's say, one of our in-person educational offerings. We just completed our winter conference, had multiple tracks of education related to Medicare, related to hospice, private pay, VA, Medicaid. So all sorts of different opportunities for learning there. But one of the things about attending those educational opportunities is the networking that you get. Everybody attending there is doing the same thing that you're doing. And you can find somebody there that's doing what you're doing, whether or not you're a non-medical agency, or maybe you're a Medicare home health or a hospice. And one learns best from their peers and finding out what other people are doing to be successful, whether it's through innovation or what kind of programs have they put in place to help with compliance issues, what efficiencies are they implementing at their agency business-wise to keep them profitable, etc. So there is an immense opportunity to network with other business individuals in your business. And that is, I think, a hidden opportunity or a hidden gem that people forget about when attending in-person education.
Absolutely. And there are a number, maybe you can share with our audience, there are a number of ways to attend, or a number of different opportunities for association events and training sessions throughout the year.
Absolutely. And we provide quite a bit. If you go to our website at www.tahch.org, we have an upcoming events tab, and we provide not only in-person education, but also ongoing webinars. And we just completed a webinar on separate entities. And in Texas, our licensure is what we call an umbrella license that allows you to have multiple categories of licensing on one license. So if you want to do, let's say, a full array or the full continuum of care from private pay to Medicare home health to hospice to Medicaid, and you want to do it all, then you can do it all if you want to. You just have to have the correct categories of license on your license. So you can have licensed home health, licensed and certified home health, hospice, and PAS. And that allows you to do different things in the home. However, what sometimes people forget is if they are doing licensed and certified home health services, let's say, but they also have a private pay division and they have some private pay home health. Maybe there's some cross referrals that they do there, that sort of thing, which is totally fine if they have a Medicare home health client that needs some additional private pay, that sort of thing. And let's say they do both, but they don't have a good process for ensuring that they are running their private pay business very differently than their Medicare home health business. They don't have policies and procedures in the PAS category, let's say, that are separate and distinct from how they do things in Medicare home health. If a surveyor cannot discern that difference, then they're going to hold your PAS clients to the same standards and COPs as your Medicare home health. That gets a lot of people into a lot of trouble real quick. And sometimes people don't understand why it's important to run separate entities. They think, oh, I'm going to hold everything to that nice higher standard. But they're really not. And then a surveyor comes in and says, okay, I can't distinguish the difference. I really am going to hold you to those higher standards. And therefore, they get themselves into a lot of trouble. So we just did a separate entities webinar, for instance.
Oh, very good. That's a very good point. We work with a lot of clients in Texas for licensing, and that is a really nice flexibility for the licensing piece to be able to house it under one umbrella. But a very good point to have, if you are going to have separate lines of business,
yes,
you do need compliance policies to support each line of business from a survey perspective. Really important point.
Absolutely. And you have to be able to operationalize that as well. Policies on the shelf are one thing, but operationalizing those policies are quite different. So those are the kinds of things that we do. We know what the pain points are or what the hot topics might be. For instance, we've been providing a lot of education recently on VA. There's a lot of folks that are interested in providing services to the veterans, but working with the VA is a completely different animal. So a lot of education there, just as separate entities. We have a administrator training that we do every year, same time, same place, usually every year. It's well attended, and that is specifically focused on what you need to do as an administrator or alternate administrator of an agency. So, and that gets into those little nuances that I just mentioned, for instance, on operationalizing your policies, understanding your policies, and everything that you need to do to maintain compliance.
Perfect. And I was thinking, as you said, the website for the association, we'll put that in the recording so people can access to find when the next available trainings will be here in
Absolutely.
this year. Yeah. The last sort of question I was thinking to ask you is sort of future casting, as you have a critical involvement not only in the state of Texas but nationally on, you get to talk with, communicate with, and share ideas with people on the national stage for home-based care. What do you see, like if we look out, the next few years, 3 to 5 years, for the demand for services, for the types of providers, for the changes coming? What do you see in this space that's good and maybe not so good?
Well, certainly on the good side, the demand is not going down. We have an aging population that is exploding, and so the need for home care is there. And during the COVID experience, I will say home care was in the spotlight, really. And so I think people do remember that. And so the need for home care is there, and it's just going to continue to grow. So that is a very big positive. But with that positive, also in that spotlight, it comes additional scrutiny and regulatory burden and payment, assessment and that sort of thing. So as we look forward, as the association, we are very diligent about keeping an eye on all of the things that will affect your ability to operate a business. So Medicare home health, let's take that for instance. We're going to DC in a couple of weeks to sit with our Texas delegation and visit with all the members of our Texas delegation on a number of priority items, Medicare home health being one of those, hospice being another. The VA is also a big issue right now because some changes have come down from the VA related to their fee schedule, which are really making it almost impossible for for agencies, particularly in the rural areas, to provide care. They did a fee schedule adjustment really out of the blue and reduced rates by about 43%. We've been working on that and have a lot of traction. There's been several hearings up in DC. We have members of our Texas delegation that sit on the VA committees that have in public questioned staff at the VA about what's going on. We have the ear of the administration right now saying, you're going to have to fix this, and otherwise veterans are going to lose services and they'll end up in institutions or in hospitals, etc. So we have a lot of work to do and are working really hard on VA issues. You've probably seen some things in the news about that. We've had several stories in Texas. Now it's ramping up in New Mexico because New Mexico is also impacted by a rate reduction, not near as severe as Texas, but certainly they had quite a significant rate reduction as well. So a lot of things are happening regulatory wise and payment wise. There's been a lot of things in the news about fraud and abuse. And one of the things that we brought to our Texas delegation's attention was some concentrated fraudulent activity in LA County. So you're seeing now on the news, Dr. Oz is out there. You're seeing people do videos of maybe some questionable hospice locations in LA County in particular. That was because we really highlighted that. I went up to DC and met personally with Dr. Oz in December with a number of other home care agencies that were concerned that what was happening in LA County was impacting what CMS was doing to the home health rates, which is absolutely true because LA County is spending billions and billions of dollars more. Their spend in one county is 10% of the Medicare home health spend. The entire state of Texas is 9%. Wow. So one county is outpacing Medicare home health spend bigger than the entire state of Texas. And we went to Dr. Oz and said, you have to get a hold of this because your agency, CMS, is cutting home health rates because of what is happening in LA County, because you think we're spending way too much money. Well, we're not. And so there's a lot going on where that's concerned, and we're working really, really hard to make some changes and get some restoration or a reset of the home health rate because it's been essentially assaulted by some really, really bad actors in different pockets of the country. So, that's things that we're working on. And we hope that in the future, we'll continue to see some better regulations as it relates to home care, but it's going to be a bumpy ride for a while, considering that there's a lot of fraud and abuse. And government agencies don't necessarily take scalpels to things, they whack them with a hammer. And so we're doing our best to ensure that legitimate home care agencies, whether you're Medicare, home health, hospice, Medicaid, that we're not suffering undue repercussions of their attempts to get a hold of some fraud and abuse that has gone unchecked for a while.
Absolutely. That's so great that you shared that, Rachel. I mean, the advocacy, we see it from our end with the starting of agencies, like at the ground level of
Right.
making decisions on being able to provide care in a hospice space and the home health. Should we do Medicare certification? Should we not? It looks like there's a rate coming. Like it has a rate drop coming. It has
Yes.
real implications for agencies that are thinking about which space should we get into. VA
Right.
as well.
Yep.
VA with the reductions in Texas, like maybe that's not good to start off in that space because the rates have gone down, and that has a big impact at the ground level for people that are looking to start agencies and then provide care, like the veteran population, like you're talking about. Like if people
Right.
are making decisions at the beginning, we're not going to pursue that. That just leaves out, more options for veterans to receive the care that they deserve at the beginning. So thank you for continuing to advocate for these agencies. We see it in ones that we work with every day that are making these decisions, and it's really nice to hear, and for our audience to hear, that people are advocating all the way up to the top for making sure that there's enough funds for CMS to pay for Medicare and Medicaid and VA services as well, to be able to provide the care that people need.
And certainly, I would say private pay, some of those agencies, that's probably the fastest growing segment in home care right now, because there are so many families struggling with caring for aging parents and trying to figure out, how do we do this, right? How do we ensure that my parent can stay independent at home as long as possible? So they're reaching out to agencies that provide maybe some non-medical support services through private pay methodology. And what we recommend to anybody looking at getting into home health is to really look at the diversity and ensuring that you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. It really is not really feasible anymore to have an agency where you do only one thing. If your intent is really to grow and sustain a long-term business. Certainly getting started, you can start with one thing and then move into those next items. But really, to have diversity within your business is a way to protect yourself when you're working with the government. And Medicare is government funded, Medicaid is government funded, VA, for that matter, is funded through the VA, also government funded. That it's a challenge, and those monies are always at risk, so to speak. So it is something that, from a business perspective, you really need to look at where do I want to start and where do I want to be in the next 5 years. And we do a lot of that kind of education as well, financial education, and really business related education as well for agencies, because it's a business. Even though you're taking care of human beings, it's a complicated business. You have a business, you need to know how to run a business, you need to understand from a business perspective what it means to maintain a business, but you also need to understand that you're taking care of human beings and the compliance risks that are there.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I'm sure you echo the same thing. We, around Q4 of last year, with the change in the VA rate schedule for the state of Texas, we received a lot of inquiries to say, hey, 75%, 80%, 85% of my business is VA.
Yeah.
And we just saw the changes in rate schedule, and we need to do something different.
Yes.
and that's a hard pivot for an agency. But to your point is excellent advice. Like when you look from a business perspective, even though one payer may be healthy right now, if it's a government payer, that doesn't mean it's always going to be healthy in your particular area. And a well-rounded and diversified payer source is really good balance for a business, for a home care business. Yeah,
absolutely. We do it every day in our financial portfolios. I mean, I don't think it's not advisable to put everything in one place, so to speak. So.
Well, perfect. Rachel, that is a great way to wrap up. I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk today, to talk with me, to share your wisdom with our viewers that tune in, for people that really are hungry for information about home-based care organizations, and to have somebody with your level of expertise and reach inside the state of Texas and outside to share your perspective is really helpful. So thank you very much for taking the time.
Absolutely. Well, appreciate the opportunity.
All right. Have a great day.
All right. You too.
If you found this conversation valuable, please leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Also, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Business of Senior Care. We'll see you next time on Home Care. Doors open.